Hey guys, that's right here, and welcome back to another Clash Royale video. And as you can tell, the season has just now reset, and I managed to get myself a 7,000 finish, capping off the season at 7,071 trophies, which is definitely not great, but not too bad either. So, of course, today, I'm going to go over a ton of replays against some insanely difficult matches, and show you guys exactly how to take down the hardest of counters with the 2.9 Mortar Cycle deck. This deck still working pretty well as far as I can tell, and especially with the recent balances, I'm definitely expecting more favorable matchups to become more and more meta. But before we get into some matches, if you could please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Also, go check me out on Instagram and Twitter, links down below, and if you'd like to support me in game, feel free to use code Legendaray in the shop. The season has just begun, so if you're trying to buy the pass, any support would be greatly appreciated. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into some matches. Alrighty, so this first match here is going to be against Lucas, and starting off, he's going to cycle 3 of his cards here. I'm not sure what he's up to, but I just go in with a log. Not going to get chip damage, unfortunately, but he played those cards so quickly at the start that I barely had any time to react. So anyways, here now I'm cycling, and I see those 3 cards, and I pretty much instantly know it's Royal Giant, because any deck with the Heal Spirit, the Skeletons, and the log pretty much means a Royal Giant deck. Of course, I play the Mortar, and it confirms my suspicions. And now, fortunately, I do have enough to DPS down that Royal Giant. But, yeah, this is definitely a very, very difficult matchup. His deck is also a 2.9 cycle. So not only can he keep up with the Mortar, but he also has a Fireball to take care of the Archers or the Mortar. And that is actually going to be the key to defeating this matchup. Because he only has the Fireball for the Archers as well as the Mortar, you're going to have to force him to either use the Fireball on one or the other. You can see a bit later in this match, hopefully, how I managed to do that in order to protect the Mortar or protect the Archers to get as much value as possible. So here at the beginning of the match, you're going to be chilling, trying to get as much chip damage as you possibly can, because once it starts getting into that double elixir, it's going to get so much more difficult because the opponent will just literally always have the Royal Giant in cycle. So yeah, here again, log just to chip, Skeletons to do some distracting. And he's kind of got the same idea as well. He's going to be a little bit more passive when it comes to starting. And of course, I'm just doing the same. Not too much is happening. I'm just continuing to cycle my cards in the back. Here now, I do go in with a defensive Mortar. Note that it is in the anti-fireball position. And here he decides to be a little bit aggressive and just straight up fireball onto my tower. That gets him 0 value whatsoever. So I feel like this rocket on the tower was pretty justified. So now I am actually firmly in the lead. But as we head towards double elixir time, he's going to go in with the Royal Giant in the back, and this is the play that is insanely difficult to stop. He's going to try and play that Royal Giant in the back and then cycle to a second Royal Giant. Watch this here. So as you can see, I go in with Knight, Archers in the back. That forces out a Fireball on his end. I go into Skeletons, and look at that, second Royal Giant, 2 full health Royal Giants in on opposite lanes here. And as you can see, I'm gonna have to kind of min-max here and try and take as little damage on the left lane while taking more damage on the right, because my right tower was originally the healthier tower. But as you can see now, with that insanely large push the opponent had, he managed to take my tower down to 2188. And here you can see Mortar and Archers very far apart to avoid any fireball value right there. And as you can see, he's just gonna straight up throw another naked fireball onto my tower. So I'm just like, okay, I mean, I think I'm just, do I rocket here? Yeah, okay, I do rocket here. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, he throws a naked fireball into the tower. I'm like, what in the world are you doing? He lets me log out that Heal Spirit as well, which is major. I play a Knight so that close enough to the Fisherman so the Fisherman doesn't actually pull the Knight in. Ice Spirit will freeze everything, and that will be just enough to stop any and all Royal Giant hits onto the tower. So now things are actually looking pretty good. We're relatively tied up. I go in with another rocket, and then immediately defensive Mortar in that anti-fireball position. I believe here I'm going to go in with a Knight to try and DPS down that E-Wiz. Doesn't really work. Log manages to hit the Heal Spirit, which is a little bit lucky, I'll admit. But as you can see, an Ice Spear and some Skeletons will actually be enough to damage down that Royal Giant. And now, again, another defensive Mortar down. He gets a second Fisherman down to pull away my Knights, and this Royal Giant is just going to go ham on the tower. Luckily, I have the Tornado, so I pull the Royal Giant backwards, and as you can see, he literally is not able to break through. And you're just gonna have to kind of repeat this over and over again. You always have to be playing on the defensive against this deck, because with his fast Royal Giant cycle, there is absolutely no chance that your Royal Giant is breaking through. Not at all. And you can see here, if you do play defense, you're actually able to hold on pretty effectively. And he's really struggling to defend. He's really struggling to break through with his Royal Giants. Now I get another rocket down, and his tower is pretty much just down to spell cycle range. So I go in with a log, being careful to always chip onto the tower. Archers down will DPS down that Royal Giant, no big deal. And as you can see now, all I have to do is spell out his towers. I tornado everything back, send in the rocket, send in the log, and that is going to be GG. Well played. Absolutely finessing a Royal Giant cycle deck. So again, make sure you're playing defensive and rocket onto the tower when you can get value, or when the opponent just straight up wastes their elixir. Alrighty, so it looks like this second match against Joban from a Japanese clan. So good luck to him, and this is going to be a 2.9 Expo matchup. Now, in the past, I would have said 2.9 Expo is a pretty difficult counter, but now that I've actually learned how to play the matchup, I'd say it's pretty 50-50. If you make one mistake, then you're done. If not, you're able to control the match and sometimes sneak out a win. So as you can see here, the strat against Expo is you're going to want to keep up with their cycle of Expo. So you're always going to want to have a rocket in cycle when they have an Expo in cycle. You can do this by, just playing all of your cheap cards and trying not to slow your cycle down more than you have to. So starting off here, pretty chill cycle. You'll notice that every time the opponent plays down the Expo, I will try and rocket first and then play the log. That way, it's going to completely destroy the Expo so that it gets no chip damage, and it also is going to advance my cycle by 1 card so that I am a bit closer to getting back to the rocket. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole mind game you're going to want to be playing here. And also, you're going to want to try and trick your opponent to thinking that you're also playing Expo as well. This deck has a lot of overlapping cards with 2.9 Expo, or just any kind of Expo cycle deck. So you can really try and catch your opponents off guard with the Mortar by just simply not playing it until pretty far into the match. So anyways, here again, he's back to the Expo. I'm 1 card away from my rocket. I play down archers, and I am right back to the rocket. Fortunately here, the archers are tanky enough that I will be able to tank that much damage from the tower. But yeah, you can note here, another big play against Expo is you're never going to want to split your archers in the back. I'm going to pretty much always split my archers in front of the king tower. That way, in case he does decide to Expo, there will always be the archers there to provide a little bit of extra tankage, which gives you a little more leeway to get distracting troops down. But now in double elixir, and as we head towards triple elixir, that's when the game really becomes sketchy, because now the opponent is going to try and fireball cycle, and now if he fireballs, then I'll consider rocketing. And you can see here, you're really going to want to protect the mortar when you are trying to defend an Expo when you don't have rocket in cycle. So you can see here, I unfortunately let that Expo lock onto the mortar. I get some archers down, and I think, yeah, I cycle some archers, and then I get another mortar down. Oh no, I just go in with a knight. Here he goes in with another Expo, and really well played. He gets a lock onto the tower. I'm going to have to rocket as soon as I possibly can. And yeah, he's got my tower down to 2689. I have his left tower down to 2815. So now things aren't looking good, because my rocket is just straight out of cycle, and he's back to another Expo. So now I'm just really struggling to defend. Note how I cycled the log first. That way I can cycle to a second log onto the Expo. So I'm just going to be cycling. Unfortunately, I let his Ice Spear connect onto my archers, so the log will finish that off. I have to get another mortar down, and at this point, I'm really struggling to defend. You can see here, I think I'm just going to go in with a knight down to distract that Expo in the opposite lane. Archers will go down, I think. Yeah, archers will go down, and then the log will finish off those archers like so. I go in with skeletons, and then an Ice Spear just in time before the Expo locks onto the tower. That allows me to cycle back to a knight, and you can see a lot of it's just micromanaging your card cycles and making sure you're going to get something down to distract his Expo. So now, as we head towards the last minute and a half of the match, I'm just going to go ahead and, I believe, rocket out this Expo. I don't really have too great of a hand, and you can see here, I go in with rocket, and then a log, and then some skeletons. So that way, I'm already 2 cards away from the Expo. Now I'm just 1 card away from the Expo, but the opponent is starting to fireball cycle again. So now as we head towards triple elixir time, this is going to be prime rocket cycling time. So you can see here, I go in with a rocket. He actually makes the bad play here and goes in with a defensive expo. He probably should have gone with an expo on offense. That would have left me insanely vulnerable, but because he went in with a defensive expo, that gave me room to actually send in that rocket without getting punished at all, pretty much. So now I'm back to another rocket to take out that expo. Log again to get some chip damage on the tower. NATO to get some chip damage as well, and you can see I am going to slowly catch up on damage here. Unfortunately, I do have to rocket onto that expo. Once again, rocket and log will finish that off, and now 30 seconds left. He's only about 500 damage ahead, so I can cycle 2 rockets and that will be no big deal. 22 seconds left. I cycle the first rocket. I go in with some skeletons, a mortar in the anti-fireball position once again. Log will get some chip damage, and I think I just get a knight down because the expo is probably not going to damage through that knight in 10 seconds. I cycle the second rocket onto the tower. His tower is down to 501. I go into the log. I go in with a tornado just to get more chip damage onto the tower, and as you can see, I managed to win the match by maybe less than 100 HP. We'll see once the tiebreaker runs out. We win by 113 hit points left to spare on my tower. So you can see Expo always going to be an insanely close one. You're just going to have to edge it out at the very end by cycling 2 rockets onto the tower to try and sneak out that win. Alrighty, next up, gonna be against Ricky from PML Gaming. So this guy's gonna be running a P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider deck. So this is a very interesting version of Bridge Spam. Kind of new. The lightning really will catch me off guard, and starting off the match, unfortunately, I had literally no answers to the Ram Rider, so I had to rocket onto it. Unfortunately, that you just gotta do what you gotta do. And that's also a pretty important note. Defensive rockets are insanely underrated, and they can actually come in pretty clutch when you just don't have the answer in hand. So anyway, starting off, he's got a Fisherman, so I'm thinking Ram Rider, Fisherman, and P.E.K.K.A. This is going to be a sketchy match for sure, so I go in with a Mortar like so. Fisherman's going to pull into that. I go in with a Knight just to do a little extra tankage for the Archer. Ice Spirit will freeze the P.E.K.K.A, and as you can see, we managed to stop that P.E.K.K.A, no big deal. He hasn't used his Lightning yet, so I don't know that he has it. But yeah, Lightning is honestly, it's kind of a bit of a trade-off here. But anyways, he goes in with an E-Wiz. I'll go ahead and rocket that out because I know he has that Ram Rider, and I have more than enough to just to take it out. Unfortunately, I was wrong. But you can see here I go with a log last minute. But the Ram Rider does so much damage. It takes my tower down. Let's see here, down to 2635. So now I really am hurting because yeah, that rocket onto the E-Wiz was a little bit ill-advised, and I did not defend that Ram Rider properly. However, the opponent decides to just switch lanes with the Fisherman, so that kind of confuses me a little bit. But yeah, he goes in with a P.E.K.K.A in the back, and here I go in with a Mortar like so. That way the Fisherman will pull itself into the blind range. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out there because he got a Hunter down. So yeah, now I'm a little bit worried because he's got a full health P.E.K.K.A coming down, and I don't have that much elixir, to be honest with you. So I go in, I believe, probably with archers in the back, or no, archers in the center. Okay, I go in with archers in the center. That's going to pull that P.E.K.K.A inwards. Knights on the very edge will pull everything backwards. Mortar, as you can see up high, will actually provide offensive pressure as well. Log finishes off that E-Wiz. Unfortunately, I didn't think that P.E.K.K.A would get a hit onto the Mortar. That's why I played the Knight. That Knight now basically a waste. But yeah, if the P.E.K.K.A hadn't gotten a hit onto the Mortar, that Knight would have been big brain plays. But unfortunately, that was not the case. So anyways, here, he goes in with the P.E.K.K.A because obviously he has 7 elixir. And I go in with some archers. I still don't know that he has lightning, I don't think. So here I go into the rocket. I believe that actually gets me a mortar lock onto the tower now. Oh, no, okay, it's locked on the Fisherman. Never mind. So yeah, that mortar is dead once again. But this is a mortar cycle deck, so I am right back to the mortar. I play it down once again. I go in with a predictive NATO, and that actually does get me that mortar lock onto the tower. So here, I think he misclicked that zap, unfortunately for him. But now I'm just able to protect that mortar super effectively right there. Unfortunately, though, the Ram Rider still gets a connection onto the mortar. Man, that is so frustrating. But of course, I now have another mortar down, and he has a fisherman, but that's pretty much all he has. You notice he is pretty short on elixir, which is great for me. Ice Spirit right there to try and catch that hunter, didn't really work out. Skeletons down, did actually catch the hunter, and then I go in with archers and a knight to immediately finish that stuff off. And here, as you can see, I managed to take down the knight, the hunter, but he gets a P.E.K.K.A down once again, and I'm just thinking, how in the world am I supposed to break through? But the good thing is, I don't have to anymore because I have the damage advantage. However, here, he surprises me with that lightning, but I just go ahead and get myself a King Tower activation. So yeah, that actually ended up working out for me in the long run. Knight will go ahead and distract that fisherman. It's going to be more than enough, and we're going to have a little bit of a counter push. So we got a knight on one lane, a mortar on the other. Unfortunately, a failed predictive tornado is going to screw me over a little bit. But yeah, as you can see, I take down the hunter with a quick log and ice spear right there, and we once again have a mortar lock onto the tower. It's going to get one hit. That Ewis was completely a waste. I don't know why he played it, but that does force out a knight on my end, so I guess it worked out for him. And now he's going to build up a gigantic push. I mortar in the anti-lightning placement, and I go ahead and NATO rocket all of this stuff. Ram Rider goes down, Fisherman goes down, and the P.E.K.K.A's down pretty low at this point. So now he's got two P.E.K.K.As down. A little bit of a sketchy defense, but you can see here with some clever kiting here, I go ahead and distract everything. Everything's grouped together for the mortar as well, so it just splashes everything out. And now I go in with a defensive mortar. I don't think he had elixir for the lightning. Okay, never mind, he did. But as you can see, I had more than enough to take all this stuff out. 16 seconds left in overtime. I'm just spell cycling at this point. 13 seconds. I believe I sent a going with a defensive mortar. Yep, there it is. I sent in the rocket. I sent in the log, and I believe the NATO is going to be more than enough. NATO down, finishes off the tower, wins us the game, taking down P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider. No big deal. So as you can see, by mostly playing defense and then sneaking in those offensive mortars by playing defense as well, you're able to really catch your opponents off guard and then chip your way to a damage advantage to eventually take down the game. Alrighty, next up, going to be against a Japanese player from a Japanese clan, and this man is running Giant Sparky Graveyard, which, well, Giant Sparky is a great matchup. Giant Graveyard is not so good. So the two mixed together does give me a little bit of trouble. Fortunately, though, he does not actually have arrows in this deck. He is running the Fireball, so that actually was a pretty good thing for this matchup. So starting off, he's going to play the Giant there. I go in with a Knight because I didn't have too great of a hand. He's going to go in with a Fisherman, so I think at this point... Oh, yeah, he goes on a Fisherman, so I think at this point, I'm thinking he's playing just a classic Giant beatdown. So, of course, I go in with a Mortar on defense, like so. He's going to Fireball out the Archers, pretty classic. Oh, no, he actually Fireballs out the Mortar. My bad. And here, I go ahead and get myself an activated King's Tower, because in my mind, I'm thinking he might be running Giant Graveyard, so... If you're against Graveyard, you're going to want to get that King Tower activation no matter what. Okay, you're just going to want to get a King Tower activation. So I go ahead and I'll gladly take a mini P.E.K.K.A hit if that means I'm going to have a King Tower activation against a Graveyard deck. So here he goes in with a Giant in the back. So I'm just going to reload, play the exact same defense. Mortar here in the anti-fireball position so that he won't get fireball value on my weaker tower. And I probably just Archers in the back as well. So here he goes in with a Musketeer. And so yeah, log there, we'll go ahead and get some good chip damage, and here he goes in and pulls the trigger on that Graveyard. So I go in with Archers there. Unfortunately, he had the Fireball to take that out. Fortunately for me though, I have an activated King's Tower, and that is going to be more than enough to pretty much shut down that entire Graveyard. That's going to free me up to play a Mortar on offense, because at this point I still didn't know that he had the Sparky. So now I have a really healthy Mortar on the tower, but he goes in with a Sparky. I'm just like, what? What? You have a Sparky? So I try and rocket onto the Sparky. It gets down just in time. I go in with Skeletons to distract the mini P.E.K.K.A. Knight down because I knew he was going to zap onto it. I mean, come on. So yeah, there we go. Healthy Mortar onto the tower, and that's going to reclaim the damage advantage for my side of the arena. Archers down preemptively for a Graveyard, and then I believe here I go in with an Ice Spirit to freeze the Musketeer. Mortar on offense right there, like so. And unfortunately for us, he does have a Sparky, and he's going to get that down to finish everything off. So here, the Sparky does, I believe, take out those Archers, which is really unfortunate. And really well played on his end. So I'm going to have to go in with a a thingy there on my end. I go in with a knight because I thought he was going to predictive zap. So yeah, there, as we head towards overtime, things are tied up, so this is a bit of a sketchy match. I'm just going to tank that musketeer in the opposite lane, no point. I have the damage. He's done so much damage on my opposite tower, there's absolutely no reason for him to switch lanes now. He actually just plays a Sparky at the bridge, which is a little questionable. I just rocket that out, and yeah, he's just going to try and fireball cycle me out at this point. So, yeah, things are going to start getting a little bit sketchy because I need the mortar to defend the giant beatdown pushes, and then I need the rocket to finish off his Sparkies. But fortunately for me, I decided to risk it and go in with the rocket cycle because I know that my cycle is fast enough that I will, at this point of the match, be able to cycle back to a second rocket. So as you can see here, he doesn't even go in with a Sparky, so it's not even a problem for me. And then, yeah, Archer's down just to finish off all of this good stuff right there. I go in with another rocket here. He's going to go in with a Sparky there, but all I have to do is cycle back to one more rocket. And in double elixir time, this deck is, of course, a mortar cycle deck. So it cycles insanely quickly. Log down. I believe I'm actually just going to defend this push, actually. So yeah, Knight down right there. Archer's down as well. We'll pretty much finish off the graveyard with the help of that log. I am back to the rocket. I'll just straight up NATO the giant back just in case he tries to pull something sneaky on us, and then the rocket finishes off that tower, no big deal. So just as a quick recap, I got the King Tower activation early because I had a feeling that it could have been giant graveyard, and it ended up paying off really well in the long run. Alrighty, last but not least, we're gonna be against Nova 1 Celine 117 from the clan Evil Dragons, and this guy's gonna be using a Mega Knight Ram Rider deck. Now, a lot of players have trouble taking down Mega Knight, and this is one of the most popular Mega Knight decks out there. So starting off here, he goes in with a Ram Rider. That is a free rocket for me. Unfortunately for me, though, I somehow screw up my skeleton timing there really badly, and that does not pay off very well in my favor. So possibly the worst thought I could have had. He literally gave me a free rocket onto the tower, and I still somehow managed to screw it up. But you can see there that skeleton placement, if timed properly, was more than enough to actually stop a bandit. So that is a 3-for-1 trade that you definitely need to learn and do correctly, unlike me. So anyways, here he's going to go in with an Inferno Dragon there. Archer is going to finish that off, no big deal. He's going to go in with an E-Wiz. That's another free rocket for me. And I'm not going to screw up again like last time. Hopefully. We'll find out. So yeah, anyways, he's going to go in with another Ram Rider. He's just going to rinse and repeat the same thing. However, this time I'm going to get a mortar down, and there's no way he's getting through. Instead, what is going to happen is I'm going to get myself a King Tower activation. Bandit activates the King Tower, and now we are pretty much tied up. I have a King Tower activation, so things are looking really great. So now as we head towards the second half of this match, I'm just going to obviously be cycling back to the rocket and cycling back to the mortar. That way I can play the rocket onto the tower and play that mortar on defense. You'll notice against a lot of matchups, it's going to be very rare for you to be able to consistently break through with mortars, so you're going to have to rely on those rockets in order to get consistent damage onto the tower. So as we head towards double elixir time, Archer's down, we'll once again counter that. I go in with a mortar opposite lane as soon as he Ram Ridered, because that meant he was low on elixir, and as you can see, he didn't have elixir for the Mega Knight, just as I predicted. So here, I'm just going to log onto that Ram Rider, not going to spend that much elixir. I go in with archers here and some skeletons to finish off that E-Wiz. Doesn't really work out too well. Actually, the E-Wiz almost went down. It almost went down, but I believe I go ahead and log here just to finish that stuff off like that. I go into the mortar just in case the Mega Knight had enough health to jump onto the tower. But yeah, again, as you can see here, I am going to go in with the proper skeleton placement this time, but he does have a Mega Knight down. I once again am just going to log that Ram Rider. It's going to connect onto the tower, but at least it doesn't get the charge hit, and now I've pretty much split damage across both towers. So yeah, as you can see here, he's going to go in with a poison. I just use skeletons to kite everything over. Again, Ice Spirit will kite everything back onto the right side here. And then I just rocket out this push like so. So now I go in with a mortar as well. Unfortunately, that Ram Rider did get quite a few hits on. So here, as you can see, everything goes into the blind range of the mortar. It almost gets hit onto the tower, but unfortunately, it does die. So now the damage lead is only about 200 on my end. So I'm going to have to play some tight defense and try and get some more damage onto the tower. So you can see here, Mortar on offense, I believe, okay, no tornado to pull things away. Instead, I'm just going to focus on defending. I try to predict an E-Wiz there, but it fails. So at this point, I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is bad. Giant push coming on here. So as you see, Ice Spear on the left, Log as well will stop a connection. And then Archers down will finish off that Inferno Dragon. Skeletons to do some distracting as well. And that is going to be just enough to take his stuff down. Unfortunately, though, his E-Wiz does get a hit, so that actually makes the match a lot closer. So now, as we head towards the last minute triple elixir, I start to rocket cycle because, I mean, I'm in triple elixir. I can cycle back to another rocket if I really want to defend this push that badly. So that's exactly what I do. I go in with some skeletons, and then I think I just, rocket onto all this stuff. Look at that. It's all gone. Haha, there you go. Night Down will finish off the bandit. And you can see the rocket just completely obliterates his pushes. So if he's got a big push coming in, you can often just rocket, and that's going to do a very, very effective job. Again, Mortar on offense here will force out a response from the opponent. 30 seconds left is all I need to do to hang on to a win here. So Archers in the back, that's going to force out a poison spell. Unfortunately, bad knight placement. And then here, I'm getting a little bit sketched out here because he has a lot of things coming in. I just go and NATO everything back. I go and rocket everything out. And unfortunately for me, he's got 2 bandits down. I managed to somehow stop them with the skeletons. 10 seconds left. I go into an emergency log just to get more chip damage. His poison's not going to do anywhere near enough. 4 seconds left. 3 seconds left. I send in the rocket. It doesn't connect, but it is more than enough for me to take the win. So as you can see against Mega Knight, rocket is going to be both your win condition, kind of, as well as your way to defend massive pushes. In addition to that, the mortar is going to be kind of your distract win condition. Like, you're not really wanting it to get shots onto the tower, but instead what you want to do is to force your opponents to be constantly spending elixir trying to distract the mortar. So there we go. As you can see right here, pretty solid finish from last season. 7,071 trophies. Hopefully, I'll have a little more time to push end of season this month. School has, of course, just started for me, and I am a full-time college student. So unfortunately, I'm still trying to find that balance between YouTube and schoolwork. But unfortunately, guys, that's all I've got time for in today's episode. Huge thanks to all of my channel members. You guys are the absolute G's. If you enjoyed, please leave a like down below, as well as a subscription to my channel. And as always, this is Legendaray, and I'm signing off. See you guys next time.